Now, what makes this one, I would say, more disappointing or harder if you're a Penn State fan is the fact that in all of the 14 prior, Penn State was not the higher ranked and favored team. And that was the case in this matchup. Plus, it's at Penn State. Plus, Fox didn't select it, so it's a whiteout. I mean, everything is there. Plus, now you look at the construction of the two rosters, and I just touched on this with Oregon, but Oregon is largely a rebuilt team this year, whereas Penn State is largely a team that came back and came back with a purpose. And that's why this is so disappointing, because there's this sense and this question now floating. It's like, well, if not now, then when? If it didn't happen Saturday, then when is it going to happen? Because here's the issue for Penn State. It's going to have to happen for Penn State. They have to fix this. There's no other way around it. And the reason is they have two more of them on their schedule. And 9-3 will not get them into the playoff. You see, last year they didn't have to win a game like this in order to even go and compete for a Big Ten title and then get a home game and go to the playoff and go to the national semifinal. Their schedule was built in a fashion a year ago where they didn't have to beat a top 10 opponent to get to all those places. This year is different. You see, of the Big Ten contenders, if you look at Oregon and Ohio State and Indiana and Penn State, that's kind of really the class of the Big Ten up at the top. Penn State's the only one that has to play all the other three. Okay, so now, like, you have to beat either Indiana or Ohio State on the road if you're going to want to go to the playoff and be a 10-2 team. So at this point, here's the thing. There's two things that are true about Penn State right now. One is that this is going to be an incredibly tough road, and they're going to have to do something that they have not done since 2016 to achieve their goals. They're going to have to beat a top 10 opponent. And we'll see if Indiana or Ohio State are still top 10 opponents by the time that they play. We assume that they will be because both of those teams are very good. That's just kind of the assumption. So that's one area. And then that becomes very difficult because you're like, well, heck, man, if we don't beat one of those teams, then we're not going to be in the CFP, and that's going to be a devastating season. And then if we are able to split those games, let's say we beat Indiana and don't beat Ohio State, or vice versa, whichever one it is, let's say we split those games, which are going to be very difficult. Well, then we're going to be 10-2, and then it's not really a guarantee that we're in, although we would probably be in. And then it's not a guarantee that we would have a home game, although we would probably be close. And if we didn't have a home game at Penn State for a CFP, then you start looking at what happened a year ago, and you start actually looking at the home field advantage that was so massive in the first round, which Penn State, by the way, was the beneficiary of when they hosted SMU. So you're looking at this playoff this year. If they don't get a home game, even if they're able to split between Indiana and Ohio State, even if they don't get a home game, they would be going to Miami, Ole Miss, Alabama. And it's like, oh gosh, versus hosting one of those games, which would be just so much different. If they don't win both of them, they almost assuredly will not be in the Big Ten championship game. If they're not in the Big Ten championship game, they are not going to be getting a bye. If they don't get a bye and they can split, maybe they get a home game. So you're seeing what I mean. It's a tough road now. It becomes much more precarious. They're going to have to do something that they have not done since 2016 in order to get to the college football playoff. So that's hard. Now, there's also this other truth, which is it can absolutely happen. We saw it last year. We saw Ohio State with a veteran-laden team that came back with a purpose that lost a game to Oregon, and then they went on a run to win the national championship. And even in the middle of that, got stung by their rival at home. So it can absolutely still happen. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, so it is going to be very hard. They're going to have to do things that they haven't done before, but it is possible. Okay, so there is both available for Penn State. Both roads, if you will. You could call this a fork in a road. I just call it two truths at this point. And so if you're going to make this happen, you do have to look at, well, what's the way you work through this? And now we're going to talk about this at times during the rest of this episode. It comes down to competitive character and honesty with yourself. Do you have enough in you to evaluate yourself honestly? By the way, that's a question for all of us as individuals and as groups, families, whatever you're involved in, churches, teams, college football teams, all of us. Do you have enough integrity and character to evaluate yourself honestly? Well, Penn State's going to find out. They're going to find out. Because here's what I think happened last year with Ohio State is that they were able to evaluate themselves honestly. And they got better because of their losses, which led to the national championship. You see, what has not happened with Penn State over these 15 losses over the last, 9 years, dating back to 2016, to top 10 opponents in the regular season, is that we haven't seen anything change. Now, again, a lot of players have changed. And so now let's just talk about this year, this cycle, maybe this last couple of years. And here's what's going to be, I think, paramount for Penn State is that they evaluate themselves and they come out of this as a better team. So how do you become a better team? How do you prevent this from happening again? If you want it for those kids in the locker room, Coach Franklin and Andy Kotelnicki and their new defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles. Well, how do you make it happen? What do you do? And the fact that Jim Knowles is there, by the way, he knows the blueprint because he used it last year. Here's what happened with Ohio State a year ago when they lost to Oregon in the middle of the regular season. I won't say it was a total rebuild, but they evaluated what they had and how they were using it, and they rebuilt their defense more specifically to be a much better defense from that point moving forward. So it was no longer a system that the players ran, but it was a system that was built around what the players had. All right. And that was an important piece because Caleb Downs was right at the middle of that. And the way that they rushed the passer was right in the middle of that. And they changed things, whether it was the way that they rushed the passer or the way that they played in the secondary. And so now all of a sudden they became a better defense because of that honest evaluation. All right. It comes with the humility and that ability to do that. What are they going to need to evaluate? They have to evaluate the offense at Penn State. This offense has to get better if they're going to win one of these games. Now, it was better late in the fourth quarter, but it can't be dormant for the first three. It just can't. And here's the thing. Every great offense has an ability to have great quarterback play in it. And I'm sure that this system from Andy Kotelnicki at times with the right guy at quarterback can have great quarterback play in it. And I'm sure that there's a system that could feature the skill set of Drew Allar and allow him to play his best football. But unfortunately, right now, the marriage between Allar's skill set and Kotelnicki's system is not right. And it needs to change. And I'm not saying there needs to be a change from a personnel standpoint. That's not what I'm calling for at all. And I want to be crystal clear about that. What I am saying, though, is that this system needs to morph and be a system that is catered more for Drew Allar rather than Drew Allar trying to execute this certain system. See, right now, there's far too much short area RPO stuff going on in their passing game. He is not a quick release passer. He doesn't have terribly quick feet, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad player. All right, it does mean that because he doesn't have those features, he's not going to be as accurate when you're asking him to do those things. Now, when you actually sit him in the pocket and you let him fire the football down the field, deep over routes, deep down the field, straight down the field, guess what? It's like, well, that looks beautiful. Yes, because it fits the skill set of the quarterback. You see, if your system is not quarterback friendly, then you need a new system. And if your system doesn't fit the quarterback that you have, then you need to change it. Not wholesale, but tweaks, absolutely. This is where they need to go. I'm convinced of it. I do not think Drew Allar is a bad player. I do not think Andy Kotelnicki is a bad coordinator. I think that some of the things that they do don't mix because the skill sets are not quite what they need to be. Again, like for me, as great as that fourth quarter comeback was, it was a lot of creativity and misdirection. You're having to use Drew Allar as a runner. See, he's fine as a scrambler. In fact, straight up the field as a scrambler, he does just fine. But that's not how you're going to go and win a national championship or a Big Ten championship. You can't do it with misdirection, and you can't do it with smoke and mirrors. You can't. You've got to have a system that features him. It needs to be more downhill running. It needs to be more down the field passing, letting him do that and threatening the defense, getting the safeties away. If those things start to happen, then I think that they can play a lot better. Now, you might disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But at this point, what they're trying to run offensively and the quarterback they have, it doesn't actually fit together, and that's going to need to change for them moving forward.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.